The heck is this, How to Train Your Dragon? It's just a boy and his platonic, not romantic partner, okay? Dragon. All jokes aside, these guys met as little kids. Hidetsugu was so mean to Kairi. He was the kind of kid that would get a birthday present from you, open it, then look you directly in the eyes as he threw it in the garbage. Just a real mean kid. But their moms were friends and the moms wanted to sit around and drink mojitos at 10 a.m. while the dads were at work. Kairi was like, your mom's a demon. Hidetsugu comes back and he goes, your mom's a hoe. Anyways, on and on this went until Kairi heard some crying. Poor Hidetsugu was curled up under the window while his parents were screaming at each other in the background. Turned out Hidetsugu's dad had been cheating on the mom, and Hidetsugu found out about it. He told the mom, so he felt like he was the cause of the divorce. I mean, there was a lot of baggage there. So Kairi went over there. He just gave the poor guy a hug. You know what I mean? That's all he needed, really. And then they went and played Blaster Master on the Nintendo Entertainment System while Kairi's mom made tuna sandwiches. After that, they were best buddies. They even had a band in middle school called the Remedial Bricklayers. Hey, listen, all that's just fan fiction, right? But if you appreciate any of that stupid fan fiction, don't be a clown out there. Subscribe to the channel. That way your life is enriched and I get to see the numbers go up. That's all creators want to do. We want to see the numbers go up. Also want to give a big shout out to Jake and Joel or Magic, because those guys gave me a shout out on their channel and sent a bunch of subscribers my way. I very much appreciate that, and it's something I'm going to try to do for creators in the future. Anyways, let's take a look at this card. You got Hidetsugu and Kairi, 2 blue and a black for a legendary creature, Ogre Demon Dragon, 5/4 with flying. When this guy enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order. So it's got that brainstorm, baby. We need that brainstorm. When Hidetsugu and Kairi dies, exile the top card of your library. Target opponent loses life equal to its mana value. If it's an instant or sorcery card, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. Oh my god. So before we get too deep into this, we need to understand state-based actions. This is a concept in MTG that happens all the time, but we don't pay too much attention to it. You can see the full text by looking up an MTG wiki or the comprehensive rules. It's rule 704. We're concerned only with the fact that whenever a player would gain priority, state-based actions first check for certain game conditions. If any of those conditions are met, the necessary actions are carried out simultaneously as a single event. Then any triggered abilities go on the stack and the check is repeated. Once no conditions for state-based actions exist, the appropriate player gains priority. So if I create a copy of Hidetsugu, state-based actions are checked before anybody gets priority. It would enter and I would choose one to immediately die. Then after all state-based actions are performed, the triggers go on the stack at the same time. Being the active player and the controller of the triggered abilities, I would choose their order. So I can order the triggers to go off like I want, which would be the brainstorm effect followed by the free spell effect. Now all the rulings I can find support this thesis, but remember, I'm not a judge, okay? I passed remedial bricklaying in 6th grade and that's as far as I got. So anyway, clones are really good in this deck and we want a lot of them. Now in building a deck, there's always the consideration of budget. You don't have infinite money, dude. Who do you think you are? You might find people recommending Sensei's Divining Top and Scroll Rack cards like that. I kind of think those cards are traps. You can order the top of your library with each clone effect. So if you include a critical mass of high mana value spells, you will be mathematically assured of drawing into them and putting them on top of your library with the clone effect. And remember, you get an additional trigger off the clone, so you're digging pretty deep. Top is a great card, Sensei's Divining Top, so is Scroll Rack, but not completely necessary for this deck. If you have one lying around, I mean, you could certainly throw it in. You can go pretty cheap with this deck though, but listen man, the sky's the limit. Spell Recursion is also pretty awesome in this deck. You want it on instants and sorceries if you can get a hold of them, but you might want to include some creatures that do that as well. Anything from Snapcaster Mage to the more economical Archaeomancer. Now doubling death triggers is another fantastic way to go with this deck. Drivnod. It's the only way to do it that I know of in these colors. He's the old creepy guy. He looks like the mascot from the Megadeth albums out of the 80s, man. Iron Maiden, Megadeth, all the metal bands back then had mascots that would grace their album covers and we'd get t-shirts with those guys on them. Anyways, we want our commander to die, but we don't want our commander to die forever. We want him to just die for a second. There are a series of cards that don't see a tremendous amount of play in Commander, but have a bunch of cards that do the same type of thing. Cards like Undying Evil. It's 1 black mana for an instant. Target creature gains Undying until end of turn. These cards are cheap. Say we cast our commander. Fine, dude. Then we cast a clone. The clone enters, state-based actions are checked. We decide to let our commander go to the graveyard. That death trigger, the trigger from our clone entering the battlefield, and the trigger from Undying Evil go on the stack. Well, we can order these however we want, dude. So we brainstorm, exile the top card of your library. Target opponent loses life equal to its mana value. If it's an instant or sorcery card, you're casting it without paying its mana cost. Then our commander returns and we do all that again minus the Undying Evil trigger and take a very long turn. I have about 6 of those effects in the deck because that's where they belong, dude. And then you got Kaya's Ghost Form, 1 black mana for enchantment aura, enchant creature or planeswalker you control. When enchanted permanent dies or is put into exile, return that card to the battlefield under your control. Similar card, but Kaya has entered her Ghost Form. How can I go meet a Johnny at the mall when I'm in my Ghost Form, mom? And listen, I did not include a ton of sacrifice outlets, but I did include 5 cards that have similar text to Village Rites. So these are all instant speed, so we can wait and see what happens during the turn. If someone goes to remove our commander, we can cast this, cash in for cards, and ba-ba-ba. We got Village Rites, 1 black mana for an instant. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature, draw 2 cards, dude. My village had this same exact thing. You know, you got the gold skulls, you got the blood runes, you got the painted, pointed wood structures. Everybody who grew up in the 80s had something like this in the town square. So paired with the aforementioned Feign Death type cards, this can draw us into something pretty sweet, dude. Now we definitely want our commander out, and them's mana intensive, dude. Those 2 guys cost 5 mana, so we want ramp that gets us colors if possible. One thing to remember is that Dragon's Horde is great with a dragon in the command zone. This guy's a dragon, so that's 3 generic mana for an artifact. Whenever a dragon enters the battlefield under your control, put a gold counter on this thing. You can tap it to remove a gold counter, draw a card, or you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color. There are additionally 9 other sources of ramp. Your mileage may vary, but that's the magical number for me. Over 10 or 10 is where it's at. You want to know what else is great? Teferi's Ageless Insight and Archmage Emeritus. We can be assured that these little weirdos can get us where we need to be because we're going to be drawing a ton of cards. If you're drawing 3 cards and then you're drawing 6 cards and then you're casting the thing and you're drawing a card, you're going to be drawing a ton of cards. Now don't forget about everybody's favorite brain in a jar. You got Psychosis Crawler out there. Might have a spot in this deck, especially for running cards like Enter the Infinite. This card is 8 blue for a sorcery. Draw cards equal to the number of cards in your library, then put a card from your hand on top of your library. You have no maximum hand size until your next turn. I didn't have this in my build, but we all know if you get your library in your hand, you're pretty close to winning anyway. I think if you stuck this in there, the requisite Laboratory Maniac, and you got Thassa's Oracle out there, you should also stick them in there to win. It's easy to exile your whole library if you want to get a little spikier in these colors as well. You got Demonic Consultation and those type of lines. Anyways, for this mid-power build I made, we concentrated on clones. Sea Double is another card from the new set. It's 2 blue for an instant speed. This spell can't be copied. Choose 1. If an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, you may choose both. Copy target spell, you may choose new targets for the copy. A copy of a permanent spell becomes a token. That's fantastic. Or you can create a token that's a copy of target creature, any target creature, and this is at instant speed. This is a new one, and it's great for this deck. This is a great card in general. We also want a good mix of efficient clones like Phantasmal Image. 1 in the blue for a creature illusion. It's a 0/0. You may have Phantasmal Image enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield. Anyone you want, dude, except it's an illusion in addition to its other types, and it has when this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability, sacrifice it. This guy can copy mana dorks or smaller utility creatures before our commander comes down. Then you have cards like Mirror Image. It's efficient, comes down to clown. At 3 mana, this card pretty much rips, dude. You also have Clever Impersonator, 2 in a blue for a creature shapeshifter. It's a 0/0. You may have this guy enter the battlefield as a copy of any non-land permanent on the battlefield. This guy can copy our buddy's enchantments or artifacts or whatever. It's only a couple bucks right now. Then you have this nice little enchantment, Mirror Mockery. It's 1 in a blue for an aura. Enchant creature. Whenever enchanted creature attacks, you may create a token that's a copy of that creature. Exile that token at the end of combat. Slap this on your commander. The token immediately dies to the legend rule anyway. This card normally sucks, but it's pretty great here, and it's very cheap as well. Alright, we got gobs and gobs of clones and clones effects, and instants that create clones, and sorceries that create clones and clones. Alright, this deck also has 17 instants and or sorceries that are over 6 mana, our Haymakers. Listen, at 6 to 10 mana you have a wide variety of spells and themes to pick from. You could go with extra turns with Time Stretch, 8 blue for a sorcery, target player takes 2 extra turns after this one. This is 10 damage to someone's face and 2 more turns of just complete nonsense, plus it doesn't exile itself. You can recur that card with Mnemonic Deluge, it's 6 blue for a sorcery. Exile target instant or sorcery card from a graveyard, copy that card 3 times. You may cast the copy without paying their mana cost. Exile Mnemonic Deluge. You probably want this card in there anyway. You can even exile a card like Cackling Counterpart to make 3 copies of your commander to take a super long turn, put everybody to sleep. If you want to get a little thematic with it, you can lean into Milth shenanigans and recursion from other decks with Breach the Multiverse. This card does both, brother. This card's awesome. It's 5 black for a sorcery. Each player mills 10 cards. For each player, choose a creature or planeswalker in that player's graveyard. Put those cards onto the battlefield under your control. Then each creature you control becomes a Phyrexian in addition to its other types, dude. Or you can be a real jerky jerk and lean into cards like Worst Fears. This is 7 and a black for a sorcery. You control target player during that player's next turn, exile Worst Fears. It depicts all of the worst fears of someone who never witnessed the ravages of TikTok. Gorgons and wolves, I mean, these all pale in comparison to the body of work on that diseased platform. Or you can lean into theft cards, cards that steal stuff out of people's libraries, or off the battlefield like Blatant Thievery. So this is 4 blue for a sorcery. For each opponent, gain control of target permanent that player controls. Theft of your opponent's stuff is one way to never get invited over for Chili Night. This art, dude, I don't know what's going on. I thought he was taking a lollipop for the longest time. Now, you aren't particularly creature heavy, so Necromantic Selection can be a nasty way to pull ahead. You can just bring your commander back. It's 4 black for a sorcery. Destroy all creatures, then return a creature card put into a graveyard this way to the battlefield under your control. It's a black zombie in addition to its other colors and types, and exile this card. I found that you want about 15 to 18 of these big haymakers to really get the deck humming. You aren't casting your commander too early, so having a good chunk of cheaper spells, cantrips, stuff like that makes a lot of sense as well. I put together a deck list that really hums pretty well. You'll hopefully be casting giant spells you have no right to be casting by turn 4 or 5, and then more than one per turn hopefully the next couple turns. I put in a decent mix of spells that you could build into with signpost cards from the themes above. You don't need to spend a ton of money on a deck like this. It'll do fine with cheaper cards as long as you can get out there and clone the heck out of your commander. It has the potential to be a devastating deck. There are various combo lines you could follow as well if you wanted to go that direction with it. It's a very wide open commander in Dimir colors. Keep hands with ramp, those are the good starts you need. In gold fishing, those immensely powerful effects can really put you ahead. I mean, you're just taking turn after turn, it's nuts. Yeah, enjoy the deck, man. Enjoy your life, brother. Keep feathering it. Also, many thanks to Jake and Joel or Magic once again. I got a comment from them a while back, and these guys found one of my videos useful, and I just have had a big influx of people to the channel, and that's pretty awesome. That's an incredible thing that creators can do for other creators, and I will also endeavor to give credit to other channels more often. Check out Grazit MTG if you haven't already. Blessing America upon you, Umbasa.